Hey there, listeners. I am Joanne Lee Cornish, your truth bomb dropper in the world of weight loss, body composition, and mastering the art of rocking the body you've always deserved and dreamed of in midlife and beyond. Let's cut through the noise. Society tells us it's downhill from now on. We're told to embrace the middle-aged weight gain, embrace the muscle loss and poor health. If that's your vibe, then cool. But if you're ready to defy the narrative, then I am your gal. This podcast is a no fluff podcast where we break down the essential truths of body composition, toss around some practical tips, and dissect the latest trends. I'm not here to sugarcoat. I'm here to show you what's not just possible, but downright probable for you. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to click the link in the show notes to explore how we can team up and kick mediocrity to the curb. I offer one-on-one coaching, my ever-popular group coaching programs, and my corporate Educate to Elevate program. Okay, let's get on with the podcast. Enjoy. The peptide industry has absolutely blown up over the last few years. Since the weight loss medications became so available and people got used to pinning themselves, sticking needles in themselves. Yeah, since people just got kind of used to sticking themselves with needles and got kind of accustomed to that, then that kind of opened the whole Pandora's box, didn't it, to what else was out there. And indeed, the use of peptides that used to be kind of a fringe movement, phenomenal, I think, but a fringe movement it's definitely a lot more mainstream. And it is the topic for a podcast like this, but social media posts and blog posts and people how to stack it and cycle it and all this terminology that it was only seemed to be the bodybuilders used to talk like that. But then what also happened, and this happened in, I think it was July, that the FDA got involved again. And you might have seen the headlines where it said the FDA banned 17 peptides. And it sounds super scary, but like most things in the health and medicine industry, the truth is a little bit more complicated. It wasn't a middle of the night surprise announcement. This has been actually brewing for years, and finally it boiled over. And that happened in, I believe it was mid-July. Now, the reason that the FDA banned 17 peptides, and we'll get onto that term banned as well, but the reason that that happened was the popularity. So peptides have been bubbling under the surface for decades. They are nothing new. So they've been well used in wellness clinics and definitely in bodybuilding circles and also in longevity and anti-aging medicine. They are nothing new and they haven't been for years. And they weren't really on the FDA's radar in such a big way until the weight loss medications, until semaglutide, Ozempic, tirzepatide, and this GLP-1 boom turned peptides into household names. Now, here's how it works. Now the FDA are kind of, it's brought to their attention and they see it just like we do all over the place. So what did the FDA really do? So how does it work? So when a category of drugs gets too popular, regulators start to dig deeper. And once they did in this case, they weren't just looking at the GLP-1 weight loss medication, they were looking at all peptides. That's how we ended up with 17 of them being reclassified this summer. They weren't banned, they were reclassified. So let's talk about why, what each of the peptides is known for, and why you probably won't see large clinical trials anytime soon. Even though some of these peptides are incredibly promising, or indeed, proven useful by many. So what does the FDA do? So the FDA, what it does, it maintains a list of substances that compounding pharmacies can use legally. And you can agree that the compounding pharmacies really, really got involved in the weight loss medications. So that list is divided into categories. So category one is the peptide, the compound, let's say, is okay whilst under review. Okay, compound pharmacies, you can sell it, you can use it, you can prescribe it whilst under review. Category two states that compound substances, the category two are substances that present a significant safety concerns. So that's a big jump. You go from category one substances like, hey, they're okay, they're under review, to category two, where no, these substances, any substance in a category two is stated as having significant safety concerns. And if you get to category three, this is there's insufficient data to even make a call on category three. So that's a no-go area. So in July, the FDA placed 17 compounds into category two. What that means for the compounding pharmacies, the ones that custom mix medications for clinics and for patients, they can no longer legally prepare them for human use because category two again says the category two substances present a significant safety concern. And for that reason, the compounding pharmacies cannot legally prepare them for human use. So although the media said the FDA banned them, it wasn't a full ban. You're still going to see these peptides online sold for research only. That's a nice term. Not for human consumption. But it does close the door to medical clinics using compounding pharmacies as their source. And that was really, really popular. Think of it like this. So the FDA saw peptides leaving the shadows and moving into mainstream. And they basically yanked the emergency brake. And what they're saying is like, hey, there's too many safety issues. You guys were on the fringe, you're in the shadows before, now you're out in the open. We gotta put a handbrake on this. What are the 17 peptides? And I appreciate that a lot of you won't know what this is, and maybe that's better, but there's some real popular ones in here. So I'll just give you a sentence, just so you can maybe recognize the names and why people are so upset about this. I'll start with probably the most popular one in the list, and that is BPC 157. BPC is probably the most famous. I've used it myself several times with great success. I actually think I was probably heading towards shoulder surgery, but BPC7 saved me from that. It's derived from a stomach protein, so it's actually it's called body protective compound, BPC, that's what it stands for. So it's insanely good for people with gut issues. So it's known to repair the gut, but it's also being used for ligament healing and reducing inflammation. It is a biohacker's darling in the peptide world, and really great for tissue repair. Healed many of my injuries. Me and my husband have both used BPC 157 many, many times. The next one is LL37. LL37 is a microbial peptide. It's marketed for immune support and fighting infections. So people loved LL37. They used to like it when they were traveling and things like this, when you're more susceptible. There is dihexa, that was a neuroactive peptide that was used for brain repair, memory support. People started touting it for, to reduce the risk of Alzheimer's. There's GHKCU, which I love. GHKCU. I take it all the time and is well known in skincare for anti-wrinkle. It's also known for hair regrowth, so people love that. Also wound healing potential. I absolutely love it for say anti-wrinkle hydration in the cell. Really helps with loose skin. I love GHKCU. So obviously I purchase it from a research lab, which tells me that it's not for human consumption. And you know what? I can be my own boss on that. Then there is, I won't go through all of them, Epimorelan, that is a GH releasing peptide, been around forever. fewer sex hormones, but fewer side effects. Widely used in anti-aging clinics to boost people's growth hormone. Oh, well, melanotan 2, that's a tanning peptide. Also meant to increase libido if you can get over the nausea and feel like vomiting that it can cause. Hugely popular, but very controversial because of skin cancer concerns. I personally would not take that one. And that's a good example, right? It's very, very popular. Most people will use it very safely. When you see how it works, I would not take that. But in the summer, people love it. It gives you a tan. They'll say it protects them because they don't have to tan as much. Then there's MOTS-C, MOTS-C. MOTS-C is a mitochondrial peptide. It increases energy metabolism, improves insulin sensitivities. It is big in the anti-aging circles, and I think for good reason. That one's really popular. And if I haven't done it already, I'm going to do a whole podcast on cellular health. And, MOTS-C is a mitochondrial peptide, no longer available from the compound pharmacies. Semac is a Russian peptide, and that's used for brain health and it's used for focus. So that one isn't even injectable. You can actually get nasal sprays and things like that. And I know that one, never use it, but I know it's really popular. And then there's other, I won't get into this, but thymosin, beta 4 and alpha 1. These are for tissue repair, wound healing, immune support. A lot of people like the thymosin when they travel again to protect their immune system. So all of those, and the ones I didn't mention, have been not banned, but they've been reclassified. And you think, well, okay, but some of them are really good. Maybe I'll just wait for them to be reclassified and maybe FDA approved. How much would that cost? The FDA approval gauntlet, what does that involve? To get from a lab bench to a pharmacy shelf is a long, expensive road. On average, 10 to 15 years. On average, a cost of 50 million to over $100 million. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of money. So what is the process? First, you've got to do preclinical studies. So these are on animals, toxicity, dose findings, things like that. Then you'll move into phase one. A phase one study will be about 20 to 100 people just for safety reasons. Then if you can move on to phase two, if you've moved on to phase two, that could be a few hundred people to see if it works and refine the closing. And then if you move on to phase three, now you're getting really excited. Now we're using thousands of people across multiple sites to prove efficacy and safety. So you'll love it when a product is like going through, phase three trials. So preclinical phase one, two, three, only then can a drug get FDA approval. And even then, it's not guaranteed. So here's the problem for peptides like BPC 157, like my favorite GHKCU, like the MOTS-C. We're still in animal studies with maybe a couple of tiny pilot human tests. That's like saying you got a rumor that it's good, but you haven't even got into the schoolyard yet, and let alone getting into a preclinical trial. I mean, you're so far behind the starting line. There's not close to being enough data to justify any sort of major league investment. But that doesn't mean they don't work. It just means that they haven't had the level of testing primarily because of the costs involved. So why is it unlikely, we're going to see these peptides actually FDA approved? I mean, if you're waiting for something to be FDA approved, you're going to be waiting a lot. Well, it's not, in my opinion, it's not going to happen. And this is why. Let's take BPC 157. BPC, body protective compound, it's something that's made in your gut already. You can't patent what nature already makes. You can't patent it. You can't patent what nature already makes. Most of these peptides are fragments of proteins we already produce in our bodies. That means they're what we call an open source. You can't patent an open source. Companies can patent delivery systems or analogs, but not the natural molecule. Imagine spending $100 million providing BPC 157, so proving that BPC 157, heals tendons, and you prove it, and you do the 1, 2, 3 phase studies, and it works, and the FDA say, hey, good for you, slap on the back, thank you so much, and you get FDA approved, and then you've got 50 competitors that were just waiting for you, selling it on day one after approval. No investor is going to pay for that. No investor is going to fund that. It makes no sense. So barrier number one to ever seeing these on your Walgreens shelf, patent problems. Why would anybody invest the huge amount of money and the huge amount of time when they would just have competition waiting for them upon approval? And the second barrier is competition with blockbuster drugs. So let's take gut health. If BPC 157 works for inflammatory bowel disease, it could compete with Humira or the other drugs that are prescribed for IBS. These drugs that bring in billions of dollars annually. And I don't know where you are on the realm of conspiracy theory, but I don't think you have to be too far into that realm to think why would the pharmaceutical industry let BPC 157 into their arena and for them to risk billions of dollars on a peptide that your body makes naturally? Or MOTs-C. MOTs-C for metabolism. Imagine it competing with the diabetes and obesity drugs that are worth billions and billions of dollars every year. The pharmaceutical companies do not want to cannibalize their own profits. So they're not going to push peptides forwards, and they are powerful enough, they have enough strength and influence to make sure that nobody else gets any farther in that progression either. Be it right or wrong, but the pharmaceutical industries are going to protect their interest, and they're certainly not going to invest in anything or allow other people to invest in anything that is going to eat into their billions and billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars profit. So these two barriers together, you get this limbo zone. You get these very, very promising molecules that are incredibly popular, and people are swearing by them. And now you might not have the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials, but you've got a whole arena of people that have been using these and experimenting with these and researching, being their own boss for a long time now and having phenomenal results. But, the patent problems and the competition with Big Pharma, these promising molecules that are just too risky to commercialize them, they're not unsafe, they're just commercially inconvenient. Yeah. And we know that every medication, RX medication, I think the best one has a 60% safety profile. None of them have a 100% safety profile, and I doubt any of these peptides do too. But to say they're unsafe, when we know most pharmaceuticals aren't safe either, and there's a huge level of personal responsibility and lifestyle factors that, you can't just blame Big Pharma for that. But what it comes down to is they're commercially inconvenient. Now, if I think of it in terms of the FDA, I don't really think they had much choice. You know, they've got rules to abide to. They made the rules to abide to, and without the preclinical trials, without the phase one, phase two, phase three, where we've just got, well, social media says it's pretty good. That's not really a an entry point, is it? So I can't really blame the FDA because they have to set safety standards. And if there hasn't been the standard studies required, I can absolutely see the concern, especially when you couple it with the popularity. But still, it doesn't sit well, does it? That we've got these such promising products, and yet if they're labeled as banned by the FDA, if they're banned, sorry, if they're known as not FDA approved, then maybe rightly so, people are scared off by them. And yet others, myself included, are experiencing huge, benefits of them. So where does that leave everybody? The compound pharmacies cannot compound these 17 peptides anymore. The clinics that the compound pharmacies supplied, they cannot get them legally through that route. And if they can't get them legally, the clinics got high risk, and so they're not going to sell it. But they are still available through the research labs and the grey market suppliers, which again, it's almost like the FDA reclassify them to make them harder to get. But what they do is push people to go to other avenues to source these peptides. And some of them are phenomenal and some of them are not. But now we're in this, behind the back door kind of environment of sourcing things ourselves. This way, you've got to do your own research, because of all the research labs. I mean, please, on mine, I know my certificate of analysis is right there on the website. At least look for that. What you're going to see is the labels that say not for human use. But we all know what's happening, but it's always going to say not for human use. And that's where it's not for human use. If you buy something that says not for human use, just because you think it is, it's not sold for human use. So that's up to you, okay? But the problem is the purity is going to vary. Sterility is going to vary, and you have no FDA oversight. One lab might be excellent, the other might be, a garage situation. Somebody just making a quick buck or something without any evidence or any research of their own going on. So, although I am a big fan of peptides, I don't take a whole bunch. Like I say, I like my BPC 157 when I need it. I do take the GHKCU. I take my own molecules. I take my 5-amino 1MQ. I take my own SLU PP332, which I think are absolutely phenomenal. That 5-amino and SLU is a game changer for me, but they will never be FDA approved, ever. Be cautious with everything, because research grade is not pharmaceutical grade. If you're putting something in your body, you want to know it's clean, sterile, and exactly what it says on the label. And that's the gap we'll have to live with. Peptides that probably work, for some people work phenomenal, but we are never going to see them move towards mainstream medicine anytime soon because of the just huge obstacles involved. So to wrap this up, what happened in July wasn't a off-the-cuff FDA ban. And I know the FDA gets a lot of flack, and but it didn't really have a choice. It was an inevitable outcome of peptides getting really popular. And that's, again, thanks to the weight loss medications. So the FDA, what they did is they pulled 17 of the biggest names into a category two. And by classifying them as a category two, they basically shut the door on the compounding pharmacies, which has shut the door on the clinics and wellness and longevity centers. And unless somebody finds a clever way to patent an analog or prove a unique case that doesn't step on Big Pharma's toes, don't expect to see, any large legitimate trials. It's just not going to happen. For now, these peptides live in the underground, where they've been for a long, long time. There's nothing new about these. Available from research labs, which they have been for a long time. But again, you need to educate yourself, and you should be used with caution. But they're unlikely to show up on any pharmacy shelf anytime soon. So, the peptides, I think it's incredibly exciting. I think it's frustrating. I think some companies are a little sus, but that's the state of peptides 2025. I do hope you enjoyed this episode of Midlife Mayhem. Be sure to subscribe and be sure to tell your friends about this wonderful podcast. If you would like more of me, then on social, it's simple, just my name at Joanne Lee Cornish. Also, my website, theshrinkshop.com, where you can see all my coaching programs. There are many, many ways we can work together. Obviously, I do private one-on-one coaching. All my programs are in a self-study form, and all my programs are run as a live program at least once a year. I try and do twice, but it usually ends up being once. I have mindset program. I have my awesome 5-day peak week shred that people love. I have the signature weight loss program. I have Tight 28, which is advanced weight loss. I have muscle mastery, and I have mastering midlife. So 6 programs that offer a progression to fully understand the body composition through the ages. If you have questions, if you're kind of wondering how I can help you, then simply shoot me an email at jo@theshrinkshop.com. Tell me what's going on, and I'll get back to you and let you know the way I can help. Okay, that's it for now.